Hi, we'd like to welcome you to another in a series of webinars designed for airports and the aviation community. I'm Terry Bills, I'm the Transportation Industry Manager here at Esri, and today I'm joined by David James and Michael Beavers, both from our aviation sales team. So today's webinar is focused on how ArcGIS can help airports conduct and document their daily airfield inspections and meet their daily airfield inspection requirements, whether FAA's Part 139 or ICAO's Annex 14. You'll see how we have configured standard off-the-shelf technology to support the entire workflow of your daily inspections, and if needed, to generate work orders and to create the necessary documentation for your regulatory agency, whichever that might be. Before we begin, I'd like to point out that we are recording this webinar, and while everyone will be on mute, there will be time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. You can type your questions into the question box, and we'll try to answer as many as time allows. Additionally, the slides, which you'll see today as part of this webinar, will be available to you on the GeoNet group, ArcGIS for Aviation, and we'll give you the link at the end of the webinar. So I'm sure that most of you on the call today are familiar with either the FAA's Part 139 requirements or ICAO's Annex 14, and specifically with the airport self-inspection requirements. Under the FAA's guidelines for Part 139, each airport has to demonstrate that they have adopted procedures and the associated equipment to, 1, conduct inspections, 2, to rapidly disseminate that information. 3rd, they have to show that they actually have qualified and trained personnel to conduct these inspections. 4th, a reporting system to ensure prompt correction of any unsafe conditions found on the airfield. And then finally, the ability to maintain those inspection records for 12 months. So one of the problems for many airports is that historically they've used paper processes to document these inspections. And they had some difficulty turning these paper records into the type of documentation required for the FAA certification. And another issue that I feel like a number of airports really sort of struggled with is how to turn an issue that they found on the airfield into a work order in a timely manner and to ensure that it was followed up. So what we're going to show you today is really the complete workflow of your daily airfield inspection processes, including either linking to if you have an existing work order or asset management system, or lacking that, using Esri's workforce to achieve the same end. But rather than me going on, let me turn it over to David James, and he's going to give you a little bit more background. So David, take it away if you would.
Okay, Terry, thank you. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Great. So welcome, everybody. I'm David James. We're looking forward to showing you how Esri's technology is being used to transform airfield operations at airports across the country. This is our agenda. We'll provide you with a fast-paced review of our airfield operations solutions. Our demo will cover 2 inspections. We're going to be showing you dashboards, mobile apps, and integration with CMMS systems. And after the demo, we'll take your questions if you have some. Before we get started, I really just wanted to provide you with an overview of what the Esri Airports GIS team is and our goals and priorities. Really, it's myself and Mike Beavers, supported by people like Terry from a marketing perspective. Our primary goal is to increase awareness of GIS across the airports industry. We do that by meeting with airports executives, operations managers, and of course, GIS staff. We also attend and present at lots of industry events, and we publish articles in trade magazines. Ultimately, the success of our airport customers has the most impact on raising the profile of GIS. But these are some of the focus areas we have: safety, security, and health, customer service satisfaction, operational efficiency, financial performance, and innovation at airports. We see those as common themes with just about every airport we work at, we visit with. So, and these are just some of the great airports we've met with just recently, just a selection of our customers in North America. We all know the last year has been a really challenging year for airports. And for the Esri team, it's meant that we haven't had any business travel for almost a year. But despite these challenges, we've stayed engaged, and our airport customers, new and established, have really welcomed meeting us whenever we've been able to do that. We've typically met with at least 3 airports every week over the last year. We're constantly impressed with the great work we see at the airports. There are several trends that have emerged over the last year that we've been tracking. The most encouraging trend, though, I would say, is the greater awareness and involvement we are seeing from airports operations staff and airport executives. This engagement, or this level of engagement, means that many airport leaders have recognized the business value of GIS, and they're supporting new initiatives that will capitalize on their GIS investments. We're also seeing that many airports are developing more maturity and extending their GIS reach from the sort of regular system of record domain that many of you have maintained into the realms of the system of engagement and a system of insights, as I'm showing on this diagram. And so airports are now leveraging the authoritative data they have been maintaining in the system of record to support things like mobile apps used by operations staff working on the airfield and around terminals. They're also using Esri dashboards to publish real-time data-driven information for managers and executives. And what we see are these high-value apps and dashboards are capitalizing on the investments that airports have made in Esri technology and helping airports to successfully fulfill critical business operations. Where we see the greatest airport GIS successes and return on investment is when GIS is aligned with these high priority business goals, the same ones that I mentioned earlier, such as safety and security and so on. We see lots of opportunities to align GIS with these business priorities and to deliver real value. What I want to do next, though, is focus on a solution that is being adopted very aggressively by many of our airport customers. As Terry mentioned, it's really focused on providing compliance with the FAA's advisory circular 150-5200 18C. The solution can actually support multiple inspections, including, of course, the regular self-inspection, daily inspection, continuous surveillance inspections, periodic condition inspections, all sorts of special inspections, and things like wildlife observations. The solution has been reviewed and endorsed by FAA inspectors, and so we're really thrilled about that and looking forward to showing it to you today. Really, the heart of the solution is this easy-to-use mobile app. It's easy to configure. It can be sort of adapted to each airport's local requirements in terms of runway and taxiway layout. It combines maps and data input forms, and it operates either in a connected or disconnected mode. The mobile app is supplemented by a real-time management dashboard. The dashboard is designed to provide airport managers and executives with an easy-to-use window into the current conditions on the airfield. It can easily be configured to present metrics that are important and relevant to each user. You're going to see that dashboard as well. And then finally, you're all aware that the FAA really recommends the integration between the inspection process and the maintenance processes. And so what we've been able to do is establish a connection between our mobile app and some of the popular CMMS systems such as Maximo, CityWorks, and Infor. In addition, for those airports that don't have their own asset management work order system, we can use Esri's workforce application, and Mike Beavers is going to show you that today. This is the sort of high-level workflow that we follow. This is what Mike is going to simulate in the demo today. So on the left-hand side, we have dashboards that publish data in real time or near real time to operations managers and other airport stakeholders. We have an airfield inspector role who is supported through our mobile app. It's a rich mobile app with a map component and a data entry component. Once the inspections are completed and all the discrepancy details are captured, the data from the inspection can be transferred into one of the workforce management systems that I mentioned electronically, and then the workforce management system automatically creates work orders of service requests. The maintenance engineers using their work order management and asset management systems complete the work, the repairs, and when they're finished, they're able to automatically notify the inspector that the discrepancy that was originally identified can be re-inspected and eventually closed out. So we support this entire workflow. We capture data for the whole workflow, and so there's a complete audit trail for the FAA to review. So what I want to do now is pass over to Mike so he can continue with the demo.
Thank you, David. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Good deal. All right, so before we get into the technology, I want to encourage everyone to consider this principle that if you make your GIS location-based apps available easily to your users and the contributors, then you're going to find the system become a lot more robust and a lot more accessible. And when I say accessible, what I recommend is that you have a website where individuals can then sign in and securely access that information, or the public openly. So what you're looking at here is a website that I've created is the container for some of these applications. So I would log in, and when I logged into this website, then I could see these apps, these solutions, and then simply by clicking here, it would take me to that solution like I'll do here in just a second. So before we get into the workflow, please consider using a tool like this website to share your location-based solutions with your users. And I can cover that more, and I have a YouTube site that I'll share with you as well, where you can see some more of this in action. I'm going to tab over now, and I'm going to start the demo for the airfield inspections, and I'm going to be playing the role of multiple people like you saw in the PowerPoint that David just showed a moment ago. And the first role that I'm going to play is that of a supervisor of the airside, anyone in the C-suite at an airport who wants to have real-time secure access to the status of airfield inspections, and then be able to see any discrepancies that were logged by the inspectors, potentially in real time if those inspections are linked directly through the internet, if they're connected while conducting those inspections. So I'm going to be the airside operations manager, and from my laptop or my desktop or even on a tablet, I could log into this app securely and then have access to this information about inspections and any discrepancies. So, of course, the main focus of the app is the map, and you can see here at Atlanta Hartsfield, I have the map where I can move around and then zoom in and get more detailed information about specific inspections. Notice as I zoom in, I can get an airfield diagram. in the application, and then when I zoom in even to greater levels of detail, you'll start to see some of the infrastructure for the air side included, as well as very high resolution imagery that's offered by Nearmap as part of this subscription. So as I zoom in, I could see detailed information about my assets. In this case, it would be the Airfield lighting with its asset ID, and then some other information about it, including its status. And then any issues that I might have discovered, some of the inspectors might have discovered while they were doing inspections. So in this case, it looks like on the 23rd, this pavement cracking was noted. So when an inspection or an issue shows up, I can see it in real time. I'll zoom back out, and then let's take a look at some of the other capabilities that are part of this dashboard. Well, the first would be if there's any issues that were discovered today, and it looks like there's none so far. Was there any that were discovered yesterday? It looks like there are 3, and then I can see those and get more detailed information about them. So it looks like there was some ponding that happened maybe after a heavy rainfall event here on the north side of the airport, and it was a high priority issue. I could go back and then maybe just see those issues that were yet to be resolved. So it looks like there's 5 of them, and the 2 which are urgent. So then I could filter those out and then get more detailed information simply by interacting with the map. Likewise, on the bottom, based on part 139, these are the categories of issues that have been discovered and logged in the system. So as a review, the dashboard is connected to the issues that are being recorded potentially in real time, and then it's secure and it's web-based. So really that's the key. All right, I'm going to change roles now, and I'm going to start talking about the inspections from an inspector standpoint. So that's me in the truck, and I'm going to be driving across the airfield doing my airfield inspection. And I've created this video, and I'll share that with you in the link as well. So I'm on my tablet now, and as you can see, I've got on the right-hand side of the tablet as the inspector, I've got a list of the existing inspections, which was important because inspectors prior to having access to this app were duplicate reporting issues that had already been recorded by others. So this tool meets that need. So it prevents the inspector from actually duplicate reporting issues. On the left-hand side is a form that I've configured to comply with the FAA Part 139 inspections. I'll do a daytime inspection, and the shift will be at night. If I discovered fraud, then I could simply log that, pick the fraud up, and then go on with my report. I do see an issue during this inspection with the lighting. In this case, there's a damaged light that's located on the runway. And when I select runway, then the list of runway drop-downs show up. This is on runway 1028, and I can either take a photograph with my tablet, or if I have a pre-existing photograph of the damaged light, then I could simply upload it to my camera, to my tablet, and then store that and link it to the record. It's going to be an urgent issue because of these lights are a safety concern. And because it is urgent and they're lights, I have to issue a NOTAM, and I can use this part of the form to link to the NOTAM manager that the FAA offers. So the first thing I'm going to do is generate the NOTAM number, which is a smart number, the month, the day, the year, and the NOTAM number. Then if I click that hyperlink in the NOTAM manager, it takes me to the FAA's website, and if I'm connected to the internet, I simply log into the NOTAM manager and log that directly. And then I'll make sure that it requires a service request, and David mentioned how we could link to existing asset management systems or workforce. Now I could tab here, and that'd take me to my location on the airport, where I could simply log the location of that issue. In this case, it's going to be on the approach end of runway 10. So I'll tap here on the map, and it records the lat long. And I'm going to stay hands-free so I can record this audio. So I'll just say that there's lights that are runway identifier lights that have been damaged and they need to be replaced. And if I needed to record any more issues, I could click that plus sign so I could add as many issues during the inspection as I needed. Now, this is a mandatory regulation requirement that this form meets. And I have to, during my inspections, submit that I actually inspected all these areas of the airport. Now what's happening is once I'm submitting this observation, these issues are permanently recorded in a database. And that information then shows up, as you saw here, right on the app that I'm using. And it's also written into a database so that it shows back up in a dashboard. So there's the issue that I just logged. Now what I want to do is play the role of a maintenance manager who gets an email when I submitted that. The maintenance manager would get an email, and then they could click that link in their email and then use the Workforce app. And let's switch gears for a second and talk briefly about Workforce. And it's a tool that is used to manage your workforce and manage any work that may go on across the airport. So if you just Googled Esri RTS Workforce, you'd see some of those components that are really the core key features that are in Workforce. Okay, so I'm the maintenance manager now, and I opened the Workforce app after I got my email, and I can see that these are issues that have been recorded by the inspector. And in case this is the series of runway end lights that were damaged, then there's the link to the information that they recorded. So I'm going to create an assignment, and I'll just simply go through this pick list, and it's a lighting issue. And then I'll click here on the map that will log where that issue is, and it's a high priority issue because it's a safety issue with the lighting. And I'm going to assign the date and time that I want someone out to go out and repair this light. So I can tag the runway end identifier light asset IDs, or if it's not associated with an asset, just keep a unique number, and then simply put in there what I need the work to be done. And so in this case, it'd be to replace those runway end identifier lights. Now I've created this assignment. And the next thing that's necessary for me to do would be to identify a worker who's available. And I can see that John Glenn is working, and he's got his app on his tablet, and he's going to be able to receive a notification when I assign that work to him. So he's close by. I can see where he's located because he's logged into the app. So now I'm going to select that assignment and actually assign it to John Glenn. So I can pick him from the list. Now what he's going to receive is a push notification that he's received this Workforce assignment, and he'll begin his work. So now I'm that individual, I'm John Glenn, and I got that notification that there was this lighting issue that was high priority that needs to be repaired. I can use the app to navigate to it and then start doing my work. So I click the start button there and then replace the lights, and then make a note, and I'm going to use my voice to record I have actually replaced these lights. And once that's done, then I'll be able to log that I've completed this work simply by clicking finish. I could even take a photograph, and the status of that work order has changed to completed. So I can see now that on the dashboard that that lighting issue has been resolved, and it's logged in a database. So the big value of this tool is that it gives me the freedom to take care of most of this information automatically. And I'll go back to my inspection dashboard, and I'll turn on the Workforce assignments. And now I can see that that work associated with that broken light has been replaced, and it's been assigned, and it's completed now. So really the last part would be to go back out and do a reinspection so I could change the status of this. So if I'm the worker, or if maybe I'm the manager of the airside, I could send someone out and then use this tool to conduct a reinspection. And you can see that those lights were damaged, and that we could just mark this issue as resolved and then submit it. And really the last part of the tool would then be the ability to generate a report, because the data that's associated with this workflow is in a database. I can use this tool then to create a report that I could submit for auditing purposes. So it's an automatic part of this whole workflow is to generate the report, or maybe just export that data into a comma delimited file or Excel, or even a shapefile or a geodatabase. So that's the entire workflow. And what David mentioned too is that you can vary this workflow to include things like wildlife, because your airport is likely to require you to conduct wildlife management. One of those tools that we've configured based on this series of apps would be to have a dashboard that could show you the status of wildlife observations, that maybe you've got a wildlife biologist that goes out to the airport and then conducts these wildlife observations. And the dashboard, as you can see here, shows wildlife observations that were either issues or not, and then workforce assignments that have been assigned to actually mitigate any of these wildlife issues. I won't go into too much more depth because I'm getting a little close on time, but keep in mind, again, the dashboard gives that real-time access to the manager of the airside, and then the ability for a mobile worker to go out and conduct, in this case, a wildlife observation, including the ability to link to a bird strike database. So I could then log in and then create this bird strike immediately through the FAA's website, directly through the app, and then record other information like I'll do here, that I actually was out doing an observation, saw some egrets that were loitering here on the field. I took a picture of them. It does require mitigation. I submit it, and then that information is then logged into a database. So that's the entire workflow. It also includes the ability to dispatch workers like you saw with the airfield inspections, and do report generations as well. So you could create a report and have it customized to look any way that you like. It also can comply with FAA requirements for reporting. Before I finish, I want to remind everyone that because these tools are configurable, being able to take the application, the workforce application, and then the survey, and then configure it for things like this that airports are using to do fuel inspections. So if I were, say, a tenant that is required to do a fuel inspection, or maybe I'm the fire marshal in the airport, I have to do a daily inspection for all these tenants that occupy the airfield, I could use a form like this on my mobile device or a phone even to then fill out a fuel inspection. So to wrap my demos up, these series of tools come as a solution that we can help you deliver and then start using at your airport. And I'll send you links through the chat to the YouTube video that I posted of me conducting those inspections. I'm going to stop sharing now and pass the screen back to David.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Good demo. Okay, can you see my screen again?
I can.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Okay, so you've seen the demonstration. It's pretty rich. It's very easy to adapt from one airport to another. And so when we work with airports, we have sort of developed this recommended approach, crawl, walk, run. That's what we mean by that is, you know, start off slowly and gradually pick up pace and make things more sort of sophisticated as you move along. Some of the sort of guiding principles we offer are leverage ArcGIS, the enterprise class platform. You can implement these solutions either with an on-premise enterprise, ArcGIS enterprise environment, or through ArcGIS Online, depending on where you are in terms of your GIS sort of deployment. Everything we've shown you is based on Esri commercial products, apps like ArcGIS Dashboard, ArcGIS Survey 123, and others. We always recommend going what we call going with the grain, so you configure these apps and customize them as a last resort. All we did was configure. There's no custom work in any of those things that Mike showed you. We always recommend initially focus on high value but low effort solutions, and certainly the daily self-inspection is one of those things where we can deploy it really quickly and show some immediate return on investment. We always recommend that you build collaborative teams that include both the airport GIS, airport operations staff, Esri if we're supporting you, and also, very importantly, involve the FAA early on and frequently as you build these things. As we work with our customers, one of our focuses is to really transfer as much knowledge as we can to the airport GIS staff. We want to help them build their GIS competency and become self-sufficient. And we always sort of advise that as you're doing this, continue the development of a longer term GIS roadmap. So, you know, think about what's coming next and how you can reuse things as you develop them. As I mentioned, you know, the Esri ArcGIS platform is a really an enterprise class platform. It's can be implemented on-premise in the cloud. It's high performance, it's secure, and it has lots of open integration standards for both business and operational systems. We regard ArcGIS as the ERP for airport operations. So quick recap before we start taking your questions. The Esri solution is designed to streamline airfield operations activities. It's FAA compliant. It's based on Esri commercial products that are fully vendor supported. It automates the work order process, either with the ArcGIS workforce or with Maximo, CityWorks, or Infor. It's available on-premise or in a cloud-based solution, ArcGIS Online, and it can be delivered by Esri as a turnkey solution if you want. So that's it. Terry, if you'd like to take back control and we can take some questions.
Okay, thanks. Let's see if I can get there. We go. All right. Thanks, David, and thanks, Michael. That was a great presentation. We do have a number of questions that have come in, and this is the opportunity for those of you on the webinar. You can type your question into the question box and we'll answer those. And in addition, we'd encourage you, there is a short little survey after the webinar. If you would hang around to take that survey, we'd greatly appreciate it. So there's a question really having to do with sort of the configuration. It says, how do you connect to high precision GPS? So maybe you could, Mike, you could speak to the ability to link to kind of a much more high precision together with your iPhone or iPad or other tablet device.
Yeah, glad to do it. Having managed GIS for a surveying company, for a statewide surveying company before I came to Esri, I understand the need. So I guess the key is first and foremost, understand the need for someone to collect very high precision or survey grade information while conducting your inspections. And in some cases, you may not necessarily need that level of accuracy, but to have certain can be. So there are device, whatever you've got, a tablet or a mobile phone, we'd probably encourage you to use a tablet to do your inspections because you've got more area on the piece of hardware in order to see the map and then the survey. But then there's other vendors that produce high precision GPS antennas that you can dongle or either Bluetooth to your tablet to give you that survey grade information when it's needed. But first and foremost, ask yourself the question, what level of accuracy, what's the highest level of accuracy that you need in order to collect information that's usable for not just your inspections, but other things. So in some cases, like we saw during the demo, the assets I already had were mapped so that really the only necessity for the GPS would be to locate me so that when I'm moving across the airfield, I'd have an accurate location of where I was while I was doing the survey. But if I had a high accuracy GPS, then I could go out and then use that tool for other things like updating the location of existing or new infrastructure across the airfield. So yeah, always get a unit, a GPS device that could meet that core need for the inspections, and then have one that might be able to collect survey grade information, which there are tools that are out there. And if you have specific questions about the types of antennas that can be dongled or Bluetooth, I'd be glad to have a breakout session with you on those.
Yeah, and please, if you do have a question about that, feel free, and we can take some of those questions offline, and we'll be happy to tell you about the various devices and from partners that really do support that much higher precision. There's a question really coming from one of our European airports. I'm sure they're asking about support for the AIXM data and database structure. And I don't want to go into great detail. We do support AIXM. We also, but not the full database structure at the moment. There is actually some guidance that's coming from Eurocontrol a little bit later this year that we anticipate will give us greater guidance. Our goal really is to support full AIXM for your airport needs, whether those are ADQ or other requirements. And let me, again, we can really sort of answer that question in greater detail sort of offline if you wouldn't mind, but if you will be happy to get back to you. There's another question, can you generate a heat map with the wildlife data so that for an airport that maybe, let's say, has a particularly larger issue with wildlife and wildlife observations, can you generate a heat map?
Absolutely, yeah. The beauty of this tool is whether or not during a wildlife observation you see more than one of a specific species, or during multiple observations you start seeing geographic trends where there's routinely, say for example, more birds clustering around an area on the airport where waterfowl like to congregate. Using a heat map or this tool that comes with your subscription, it's right in the web map, so I could convert individual points into clusters which show up as heat, which means if there's more of a specific species in a specific geographic area, then it shows up as a hotter spot. Absolutely, that tool is really built into the web map, which drives these things like the operations dashboard. So great question. It's absolutely the case that you can generate heat maps and do that on the fly with the data.
Okay, another question really relating to the ability to customize the various forms and also kind of the reports. Is that sure. Supported? And
like data and I recommend, and I think we all agree that if you can take most of these tools off the shelf and then configure them, that's great. But of course, for report generation, it's necessary. It could be necessary for you to create a customized report using the survey, and you absolutely can do that. So I could build my own form as a template for my report and then import that directly into my survey and then plug in the data that I've collected either from wildlife observations or from my airfield issues that I've observed, and then generate my custom report using those tools that are part of the survey. So absolutely you can do that. In fact, airports are doing that now to meet the FAA's requirements for auditing purposes. Not just creating a custom report, but some airports have made agreements with the regional flight standards district offices so that now the FAA audits your observations through their own a dashboard that the airport's configured for them to access. So not just reporting through a report like the FAA might have been used to receiving. Doesn't have to be hard copy. It's a digital report, or even now access to a real-time dashboard that's been configured so that a constituent like the FAA could consume it or see it.
Okay, and let's see, another question. Let's say an authority that is managing multiple small or medium airports. Could this solution be configured to help them support each of those, and how would that, what would that look like?
Yeah, another very good question, because there's a lot of airport clients that we have that have satellite airports or not more than one airport that they manage and maintain, some of which have general aviation aircraft that operate them, charter airplanes, not necessarily scheduled Part 121 air carriers. So absolutely, each of those individual airports that are part of an airport's authority would have a solution that they could use to meet their specific airfield inspection needs, some of which are required by the FAA, some are not. In fact, we've got several airports that are using tools that are configured to go out and do things like safety and security perimeter fence, maybe mowing the grass in the infield, or doing airfield inspections or asset management during and after construction. So absolutely, airports and these tools are able to be configured based on a specific airport within your authority's needs. So that's a great question. We're helping airports do that right now.
Okay, and let's see. There's a question relating to can the mobile app work in a disconnected mode? Does that support that if you don't have cellular connectivity? And
yeah, good question. Yeah, the tools are by design intended to be used whether or not the user in the field is connected to the internet or if there's no internet access. So if I'm an inspector at an airport where I know there's not internet connectivity, or I'm using a device that isn't connected to the internet, I could, before I go into the field, cache the survey along with the app and any data to that tablet or that device, and then take it disconnected and do my observations. And at the end of my shift, or when I get back into a place where I can access the internet, I could take the information I've collected and then sync it up to a database, which then would be shared not just in a dashboard, but in my parent geodatabase of those issues and inspections. So it's intended to work in both connected and disconnected environments. So disconnected, I cache the data prior to leaving the internet, collect information offline, and then bring it back and then resync that data once I'm reconnected to the internet.
Okay, and let's see, there's maybe for some smaller airports that really don't have all of their airfield assets collected in the GIS, could this still be kind of configured? Could it still sort of support their workflows without necessarily having a comprehensive database of all their airfield assets?
Yeah, David, did you want to address that?
I think it really is an interesting question, because we do meet with a lot of airports that really don't have a formal GIS yet. So yeah, they could start with ArcGIS Online and just the aerial imagery that they get from the Living Atlas from Esri as part of their subscription. It's high enough quality that they would be able to recognize all the features on the airfield and use that as the basis of doing the inspection and reporting discrepancies. And then over time, definitely, I know we have lots of partners that are able to help airports acquire data, maybe through an ALP or some other sort of engagement for a surveying company. But you can start definitely with just the aerial imagery, AGOL subscription, and then these apps that we've shown you today. That would be a great way for a smaller airport to start.
And maybe even use an app with a higher accuracy GPS antenna connected, like someone had a previous question, and then use an editing app on a tablet to start collecting information about assets that you may not have mapped already. Or fill in gaps where there's not data inside a database where you wanted to update or include new information. So we've got tools that allow you to update and collect information using the very same kind of tablet.
Okay, and let's see, sort of a little bit the same, in the same vein, the question says, I have a single desktop license for our airport. What additional licenses, or what would I need to implement some of these solutions? So perhaps the cloud, and maybe you want to explain that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so if you have a single desktop, let's assume you don't have enterprise, but you're using AGOL, so you could continue using your AGOL subscription, and you would need to add additional viewers and field workers. Those are the user types that you need to support this workflow. So the viewers are relatively inexpensive, I believe about $100 a year, and the field workers are something like $350 a year subscription, and that gives you access to the apps and provides you with credits for storing data in AGOL. If you're a single desktop but you have enterprise, enterprise typically comes with unlimited viewers, so you would just need to acquire some field worker user types.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess this is a question really relating to the complete life cycle of the surveys. Is there instructions on when you can delete the surveys, or how do you have any of your customers asked about really the sort of sunsetting the surveys?
The lifespan of the data.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about warehousing the data from a historic perspective, I would encourage you to think about maintaining a historic record of those inspections, whether it's on a server or if that data is backed up somewhere. So the ability to filter out the data based on a date or time would be a wise method. And if you didn't want to have that historic data included in your database, then you could use tools to then, based on a annual or a quarterly basis, take that data, because they're all date and time stamped when that issue and the observations were recorded. You could take that data out of the parent data set and then store it in an offline environment. But selecting that data and deleting it, it might be hard for me to argue that it's a good idea to just remove the data, because maybe you're running out of space or you don't want that. So filtering the data out, warehousing it for historic recording and for auditing purposes may be a wiser approach. But it is possible for you to go in and then edit that data and delete any of those records that you don't feel like were relevant anymore.
Okay, all right, thanks. And there's a question. An airport does actually have all of their assets, all the lights, etc. When you're doing the survey, how do you identify, how do you link from the tablet to the asset, so that so that you can document an issue?
Mm-hmm. The survey, as I showed in the demo, if it were an issue like the example for the runway end identifier lights, and when I'm conducting the survey, I could have it configured so that if it was an asset that existed on the airfield and it had an asset tag or an ID, I'd simply tap on that in the map, and then that information about that asset ID would be populated automatically, or could be, in a field in the survey. Or if, for example, you had a QR code, you could use the camera on your tablet or your mobile phone and then snap a picture of that QR code, and then it would push the information stored in that QR code into a field in the database automatically during the observation. So if it's an asset and those assets have tags, if not, then you could just simply tap on that feature, and then because it's in a geodatabase, it's automatically recorded with an asset ID that could be auto-populated inside your GIS.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And a couple of questions have come in really relating to the ability to integrate with Maximo. David, maybe you want to speak to the sort of the efforts that you've had together with IBM on that, and maybe you could speak to where it's being integrated with Maximo as well.
Yes, so we've done a lot of work with IBM's Maximo product team. They recommend the best way, the preferred method of integration with Maximo is through the use of the Maximo Spatial platform. And we're able to do that. And as I described, it allows us to pass data about discrepancies from Survey 123, which is the Esri product, into the Maximo asset management and work order environment. And then Maximo auto generates either a service request or work order, depending on how the particular organization has set their Maximo system up. And then at the end of the maintenance cycle, when this discrepancy is repaired and the work is completed, we can automate a notification going back into Esri so that the inspector is alerted that the item is ready for reinspection.
And those are all built through webhooks that either come with the survey or ones that we've custom built for the inclusion with these third-party EAMs.
Right. So in essence, there's multiple ways that you can achieve the Maximo integration.
Correct.
As David said, the IBM's preferred method is through Maximo Spatial, but others are actually able to do a direct connect, and we do have several partners that have worked that through as well, and that goes not only for Maximo, but whatever work order and asset management system you're using. That type of integration with these tools is fairly straightforward. Okay, another question really having to do with the ability to sort of document the training records related to Part 139. So have you had a requirement for that, the ability to document the actual training that the operations and duty managers have received with their date stamps and et cetera?
Yeah, we've had a few questions about this, and we want to be really careful. We can do some level of training documentation around Part 139. What we get concerned about is trying to become a full training solution that the airport's HR people would use to record all staff training. We don't think that's an appropriate fit for the Esri technology, but certainly some limited record keeping around Part 139. It is capable. We are capable of doing that. Just want to guard against sort of being regarded as part of a sort of ERP full-blown HR system. We're not in that business.
Yeah. So so what does, I presume the FAA has actually seen these solutions. What's been their response of the FAA?
Yeah, and some of the attendees are probably aware of this. One of the adopters of this is Tampa International. And during the implementation at Tampa International, they actively involved their regional FAA inspectors throughout the process of implementing these tools. The FAA actually did a completely remote audit of the Tampa airfield inspections process late in 2020. Everything went very satisfactorily, and actually Tampa was commended for their use of technology and innovation to support their FAA compliance efforts. So it went very well, and our understanding is the FAA was very pleased with everything they saw in this solution, and would encourage other airports to follow suit.
So as I understand, actually, Tampa allowed the FAA to log into the dashboards directly, and so
correct.
I think that was yeah, exactly. So the question, did you use the FAA database template to develop these various solutions?
Yeah, great question. The drop downs that you saw when I was playing the role of the inspector, all those fields come directly from Part 139. So absolutely, we've got those set as a framework when the solution is deployed. If you wanted to modify those fields or add others, there's no pain involved. It's just simply configuring the form so that it includes those others. But that was really the driving force behind creating the survey, was that it was using the Part 139 as a framework for each of those fields that you're collecting information on when you're doing inspections.
Right, and if airport did have other elements that they wanted to inspect, those could easily be added to the
Right.
to the forms. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, Terry. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And so maybe another question, really sort of relating to the deployment. If I was interested, how would I go about deploying this solution?
If anyone is interested in and learning more, please have them reach out to me, Terry, djames at esri.com. I'd be more than happy to discuss how we approach that with them. It's a fairly fast-paced program, so this sort of solution can be deployed in a matter of several weeks. So we'd be thrilled to hear from any airports that are interested to move forward with us.
Okay, well, I think we're just about running out of time, and we've actually sort of run out of questions. So I would encourage you, if you would please stay on, fill out the short little survey. I would also, we do have a link here on this page to more information about the particular the solutions. We also have a link to our LinkedIn group. If you're not already a member, we encourage you to join, and as well as the GeoNet, the aviation community for ArcGIS. So with that, we'll go ahead. I want to thank David and Mike for a great webinar today. And again, please stay on for the survey. And we want to thank you all for joining today. So with that, we'll close off and say bye-bye for now. And we hope that you join us for our future webinars. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.